Ever been curious about famous sports families? No? Well, we have. This is something I've wanted to do ever since I was a teenager, watching NFL films with my little brother on NFL Network at my grandma's house, because we couldn't afford cable at our house. But anyways, this is something I've always been passionate about, and I can't wait to get into, hopefully. This does well so we can do more families in this series that you all may want to see or get in depth about. But let us know who we should cover if you do like the series in the comments. But before we get into it, cue the intro.
What's coming? It's picked up. Hurts going deep. Has him to use a fingertip catch for a touchdown. Oh, plenty of time, and the pass is caught by Smith. End zone. Caught. Touchdown, Devontae Smith. For Hurts on that drive.
It's only right we start off with Papa Bear, Archie Manning. Since this isn't an autobiography, I'm not going to go year by year and give the rundown of every career accolade, but it is a fuck ton, especially when it gets to Peyton Manning. So sometimes I'm going to fast forward and do a brief synopsis because there are so many, and it is the Manning family. So, to start with Archie, like I said, he started his collegiate career at the University of Mississippi at Oxford, and he was the starting quarterback at Ole Miss for 3 years under the legendary head coach, Johnny Ball. During one of the first primetime broadcasts, nationally televised broadcasts of a college football game, Archie Manning threw for 436 yards and 3 touchdowns, and he even ran for another 104 yards, even though it was a 33-32 loss to Alabama. That performance set records in the Southeastern Conference for passing yards, completions, total offense, and with the total offense record standing for 43 years until it was broken by Johnny Manziel in 2012. In 1969 and 1970, he was named to the All-SEC team, and his number 18 jersey was retired by Ole Miss. In 1969 specifically, he was even the Mississippi Sportsman of the Year, and a recipient of the Nashville Banner Trophy as the most valuable player in the Southeastern Conference, or SEC. In 1989, he was inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. On top of that and many other accolades, he was even named the SEC Quarterback of the Quarter Century from 1950 to 1975 by several publications. For fear of this video getting too long, I had to cut down on some of the other things like I said previously. But I mean, he accomplished so much more than this. But I didn't want the video to ramble on too long, and this isn't even the longest section. So to get into his professional career, Archie was the second overall pick in 1971 draft. And he played for the New Orleans Saints for 10 full seasons. However, during the 10 seasons with the Saints, they had 9 losing seasons. For a guy that was pretty much one of the greatest we have seen in his collegiate career, he did a lot of losing in the NFL. But we don't put that much blame on him. The New Orleans Saints at the time were absolute garbage. They only reached 500 or better once, and that was in 1979, the only season where they finished higher than 3rd in the division. And even though the Saints were trash, Archie was still well respected by his peers. For example, although Archie was sacked 337 times in his Saints career, Sports Illustrated senior writer Paul Zimmerman wrote in 2007, the number would have been higher than that. Zimmerman wrote that opposing defensive lineman Jack Youngblood in particular, as well as most of the division rival Rams, were known to take it easy on the poorly protected man and not hit him as hard as they could. The team was so bad that they even took pity on him. They didn't want to kill him. But Archie had a sense of humor. He even joked that at Jack Youngblood's 2001 Hall of Fame induction speech, that he should give the presentation and that he would have said something along the lines of, "You wouldn't have gotten into the Hall of Fame without me to sack." Some more notable highlights for Archie's career: in that 1972, he led the league in pass attempts and completions, and he led the NFL in passing yards. The AFL and NFL were separated at the time. However, the team's record was 2-1-1. Archie finished his career with the Houston Oilers and Minnesota Vikings. His record as a starter was 35, 101, and 3. The worst in NFL history among quarterbacks with at least 100 starts, and he retired having never played on a team that had a winning record or had made the playoffs. The Saints, however, have never reissued Arch Manning's number 8 jersey since he left the team midway through the 1982 season. While it hasn't been formally retired, it is long just understood that no Saint will wear the jersey ever again. And now, to Archie's eldest son, Cooper. His story is a little sad early on, but it's not at least tragic overall. He was a highly ranked prospect coming out of high school, and he ended up committing to the University of Mississippi. When the practices started in the summer before school, Cooper felt some numbness in his fingers and toes, and he went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, to be diagnosed there. He was told that he had spinal stenosis, a narrowing of the spine, and pinching of the nerves. He accepted his diagnosis and ended his playing career immediately. From 2021 to 22, he co-hosted the College Bowl along with his brother Peyton. He also has 3 children. More on that later. Peyton Manning. If you don't have a snack with you, grab one now because this is a long one, and I skipped over some of the parts. But we're on the sheriff. Like his dad, Archie, his collegiate career is filled with accolades. I mean, Jesus, we can put some of them on the screen. It's insane. However, he did throw fans off when he decided to commit to Tennessee Volunteers instead of his dad's alma mater, Ole Miss. However, he became Tennessee's all-time passing leader in yards, touchdowns, over what's third, and he won 39 out of 45 games as a starter, which holds the SEC record for career wins. So I think overall it worked out for him. While his collegiate career went almost perfectly, there was a hitch in 1996 season that wasn't exactly football related. Since I was born in 1996, I only know about the little details that I did read online. However, he was accused of SA by a trainer and settled for a non-disclosed amount. You can look more into the story if you'd like, but it was literally months old, like I said, so the details I read online are probably some of the same that you can read online. I would go over his whole collegiate career, but we nor I want to make a video that long. I would barely be able to do his whole professional career if we'd went at that pace. However, he was selected by the Colts as the first overall pick in 1998 draft, and even that came with a little controversy. Some teams thought that Ryan Leaf should have been selected first overall, and as comical as that is now, yes, that was a debate. In honor of his brother's Cooper playing career, he did decide to don the number 18 for his pro career. In his rookie season under the head coach Jim Mora, he threw 3,739 passing yards and 26 touchdowns. He was definitely the bright spot for the Colts in 1998. However, he did throw a league-leading 28 interceptions, and the team struggled with a 3-13 record. In his defense, the defense gave up 27 points a game. By 2003, Peyton Manning was a household name, and that was actually the season he won his first MVP. His signature moment that season was on Monday Night Football against the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They trailed 35-14 in the final 5 minutes, and they won the game. Manning received the ESPY award, the ESPY, for the best NFL player along with his MVP. He also led the league with 379 completions for 4,267 yards and 29 touchdowns. He was the first team All-Pro and selected to the Pro Bowl. They ended up beating the Broncos in the wild card round. And in the divisional round, they beat the Chiefs. However, in the championship round, they were shut down by the Patriots' top-ranked defense. and he posted his third lowest passer rating of his career at 35.5. Intercepted 4 times and sacked another 4 times and lost the game 24-14. In 2004, he won back-to-back MVPs, and he deserved it. He threw for 4,557 yards this year, and he had a 121.1 passer rating, and a then record at the time, 49 touchdown passes to only 10 interceptions. He had a 2-game stretch where he threw for 840 yards. This season was so good, in fact, that retroactively in 2013, it was voted as the second greatest passing season of all time. To achieve this in 2004, despite being the only season of his career where he threw less than 500 passes, is insane. He finished with the league-high 13.6 yards per completion that year and 9.2 yards per attempt. He almost unanimously won MVP. 49 out of 50 votes. Beelining for another playoff run, they had an absolute rout against the Broncos in the wildcard round, and were playing through. He had 458 yards and 4 touchdowns in a 49-24 victory. However, once again, the Colts' 2004 season ended in Foxborough for the second straight time, and Manning recorded once again his season-low 69.3 rating, which was his 7th consecutive loss to the Patriots and Foxborough. And this is at the point where Manning started earning a reputation of not being able to win it all in the big games, or not showing up in the clutch. In 2005, he led the league in quarterback rating. He also didn't reach 4,000 yards this season, which was odd, but it was simply because he sat out the last 2 games. In the playoffs, the Steelers came in and visited the Colts in the divisional round. However, Peyton Manning looked to throw a game-sealing interception to Troy Polamalu, but it was overturned at the time. The NFL said it was the wrong call. After driving them in the field goal range, Mike Vanderjagt missed the field goal with time expired. This one doesn't necessarily seem like it's on him, but another early playoff exit. But 2006 was different. He opened the season against his younger brother Eli and the Giants on Sunday Night Football. It was actually their first NFL game with starting quarterbacks who were brothers, and the Colts won 26-21. This season, the Colts were the NFL's last unbeaten team at 9-0. They became the first team in NFL history, actually, to start 9-0 in consecutive seasons. Their first loss came against the Cowboys on the road, 21-14. And because of their lackluster run defense, despite starting off 9-0, they ended the season 11-4 heading into their last game. And spoiler alert, they won their division behind Peyton Manning's league passer rating for the 3rd straight season. This was the year Peyton Manning had his first Super Bowl appearance, as he beat the Chiefs despite his 3 interceptions. He beat the Ravens despite going 0 touchdowns with 2 interceptions, and he beat Tom Brady, which actually was an 18-point second-half comeback, so that was on him. But up to that point, it was another mid-playoff run for the Sheriff. The Super Bowl, however, went just as much as how you could expect it. I mean, it was Peyton Manning versus the Bears and Rex Grossman. I don't know if you know, but it was Rex Grossman. And I didn't do research. I'm sure it was Rex Grossman. It wasn't Cal Orton. But yeah, Cal Orton came later. But it wasn't important enough to research which one it was. But they were basically run by their defense and Devin Hester. And Devin Hester returned the opening kickoff for a touchdown. But after that, it was Peyton Manning versus they could only hope to stop him. You can't keep him down for long with no offense. It was only a wrap before Peyton Manning got his first ring. And that he did. He got his first ring and the Super Bowl MVP. And he gets the proverbial monkey off his back. 2007 and 2008 was more of the same for Peyton. While he didn't reach the Super Bowl, he did have a good regular season and surprising playoff exit. However, in 2008, he did win his 3rd MVP. In 2009, he won his 4th MVP and had a 2nd Super Bowl appearance. Something notable that season is that in Week 15 against the Jacksonville Jaguars, Peyton had a 23rd straight regular season game He won his 23rd straight regular season game, breaking Jim McMahon's record currently at the time with 22 straight. In the playoffs, this was actually unlike Peyton at the time. He actually had 2 comebacks in the playoffs, and he wasn't actually actively selling the Colts. He just didn't do enough when he reached the Super Bowl to beat the Saints. He wasn't the reason they lost, but he didn't do enough to help them win, and they ended up losing to the Saints in the Super Bowl. He's now currently 1-1 in his Super Bowl appearances. 2010 was also more of the same. He had, once again, an amazing regular season. All the accolades you could ask for. I mean, just making up awards at this point. But by 2011, things started to fall apart in Indianapolis. Literally and figuratively. Manning this year did end up getting franchise tagged. And that did end up leading to the 5-year, $90 million contract, which he expressed he didn't need to be the highest paid player in the league that year. But something happened that offseason. On May 23rd of this year, he had neck surgery. And because of the NFL lockout, he couldn't work out at his normal facilities. And for fear of other people finding out about his recovery, he didn't want to work out where anyone would notice. And while he was working out in Denver at the Rockies baseball stadium, some had actually seen him and noticed he was unable to even complete his throwing motion. And according to bystanders, his arm strength significantly diminished. Based on an MRI, doctors told him in the late summer that year he needed a spinal fusion surgery, and that at his age, they cannot guarantee his return to the NFL. On September 7th, the Colts officially ruled Manning out for the season opener, and unbeknownst to them, he would not start another game. Since Peyton didn't start another game, the Colts obviously went 2-14 and had the number 1 overall pick this season. They'd liked a prospect by the name of Andrew Luck, and they ended up drafting. And even though Peyton Manning didn't start a single game this year, out of sheer respect from his peers, he was ranked 50th overall in the NFL Top 100. And since the Colts did pick up Andrew Luck this offseason, it was time they had to let go of the sheriff. And he was now a Denver Bronco. Since this video is already longer than I expected up to this point, I'll try to keep it even briefer for the Broncos section because we still have 2 more Mannings to get to after this. However, the Broncos' career was more of the same. He did have 2 more Super Bowl appearances, 1 loss and 1 win. In 2013, he won his 5th MVP and made the other Super Bowl. He didn't end up winning that season, but the following season he did become the all-time passing touchdown leader. And in 2015 was the 2nd Super Bowl ring that I was mentioning. While he was absolutely terrible that whole Super Bowl run and wasn't even great in the Super Bowl itself, he did end up winning. And it was about time. He was on the tail end of his career after multiple surgeries. It's about time he was cared. And that's exactly what happened. Manning announced his retirement after 18 seasons on March 7th, 2016. In 2019, he was named the NFL 100 All-Time Team. And on February 6, 2021, Peyton Manning was inducted to the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
New Orleans, 1981. A child is born into football royalty. His father, Archie Manning, is a legend. His older brother, Peyton, is already on the path to greatness. But this story and this chapter is not about them. This is the story of the quiet one, the one who never sought the spotlight, yet twice conquered the biggest stage in sports. His name, Elijah Nelson Manning. Eli attended Isidore Newman School, the same high school where both Cooper and Peyton starred before him. At first, Eli wasn't the star of the family. Cooper was the natural athlete, Peyton was the prodigy, but Eli, he was the late bloomer, the kid who didn't brag, didn't demand attention, and didn't try to outshine his brothers. Instead, he worked. By his junior and senior year, Eli had grown into a polished, poised quarterback with a smooth release and a natural feel for the game. He threw for thousands of yards, led Newman to winning seasons, and earned a reputation for being unflappable. Even as a teenager, coaches described him as calm, steady, and unshakable, traits that would later define him in his NFL legacy. All that hard work paid off, and he had gotten a scholarship to Ole Miss, his father's alma mater. That's where he became a star. In Oxford, Mississippi, he didn't just play quarterback, he rewrote the record books. Eli arrived at Ole Miss in 1999, following in the footsteps of his father, Archie Manning. But he didn't walk in as a star. He sat behind Romario Miller his freshman year, barely seeing the field. But once he took over in 2001, everything changed. In 2001, Eli exploded onto the SEC scene, boasting 2,948 passing yards, just shy of 3,000 passing yards, 31 touchdowns, 63.5 completion rating, and a 144.8 passer rating. He wasn't just good, he was one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the nation. And in 2002, he followed that up with 3,401 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 261.6 yards per game. He carried Ole Miss to a national relevance, often single-handedly keeping them competitive. But then, 2003 came. This was the year Eli Manning became a college football superstar. He threw for 3,600 yards, 29 touchdowns, averaging 8.2 yards per attempt, and a 62.4 completion rating. He led Ole Miss to a 10-3 season, a Cotton Bowl victory, and earned not only the Maxwell Award, being the best all-around player in college football, but also the Johnny Unitas Golden Arms Award, the SEC Offensive Player of the Year Award, and First Team All-SEC. By the time he led Oxford, Eli set or tied 47 of Ole Miss records. He finished with 10,119 career passing yards, 81 touchdowns, and a completion rating of 60.8. He just wasn't Archie's son anymore. He was the greatest quarterback in Ole Miss history. And then, 2004. Eli Manning entered the NFL in 2004 under the most pressure, more than almost any other rookie quarterback in league history. He was drafted first overall by the San Diego Chargers, and then immediately traded to the New York Giants in one of the most dramatic draft day moments ever. He began the season behind veteran Kurt Warner, but the Giants wanted the future to start learning fast. That's when Eli Manning finally took over in Week 11 as the starter. His rookie numbers reflected truly the growing pains of a young QB, boasting a little over 1,000 passing yards, 1,043 yards, 6 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and 48.2 completion rating. Man, it was a lot his first year. He only boasted a 55.4 passer rating. The Giants finished 60-10, but Eli showed flashes of the calm, late-game poise that would later define his career. 2005 was Eli's first full season as a Giants QB, and that leap was truly immediate. He started all 16 games and led the Giants to an 11-5 record and an NFC East title. His numbers jumped dramatically, boasting 3,763 yards, 24 touchdowns, and 17 interceptions, boasting a 75.9 passer rating. This was the year for Eli to prove that he could carry a franchise. He led multiple late-game drives, showed toughness under pressure, and owned the trust of his own teammates. The Giants were blown out ultimately in the playoffs, but knock on the door, Eli Manning had officially arrived. In 2006, Eli continued to show steady improvement. He started all 16 games, beginning what would become one of the longest consecutive start streaks in NFL history. His season totals, 3,244, with 24 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, and 77 passer rating. The Giants ultimately finished the season 8-8 and made the playoffs, but this season was truly defined by injuries, inconsistencies, and media criticisms. Through it all, Eli remained unshakable, a trait that would soon become legendary for him. And then, everything changed. 2007. It was a turning point in this year for Eli Manning, where he truly transformed from a promising QB to a clutch performer. He once again started all 16 games, boasting 3,336 yards, boasting 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions, and a 73.9 passer rating. The regular season numbers, they weren't spectacular. Critics questioned his ceiling, but wondered if he could ever truly be elite. At this time, Peyton Manning already had a ring, and now it was up to Eli Manning to really chase that and truly attain it. So then the playoffs came. Eli went on one of the greatest postseason runs in NFL history, having 0 interceptions in the NFC playoffs, boasting game-winning drives and road wins against Tampa, Dallas, and Green Bay, ultimately culminating in one of the greatest moments in NFL history. Just imagine Eli Manning under pressure, in the pocket, scrambling, trying to get out, throws it, boom, helmet catch, goes down, touchdown. And now he's immortalized in NFL history, beating the undefeated Patriots and obtaining Super Bowl MVP. The quiet kid from New Orleans had just taken down an 18-0 dynasty, immortalizing him, like I said, into NFL greatness. The next coming years, truly up and down, nothing really remarkable. But then came 2011. Truly a year with low expectations. Injuries were everywhere, inconsistent defense. But Eli, my man, was locked in, leading the league with ridiculous fourth quarter comebacks and keeping the Giants alive week after week. Then it all comes down to week 17 versus the Cowboys. Winner goes to the playoffs. Eli goes off, Giants win, and now the playoffs begin. Wild card weekend, Giants shut down the Falcons 24-2. Divisional round, they shocked the 15-1 Packers in Lambeau. And then the NFC Championship, muddy, brutal, old school football versus the Niners. And you know what? They do it again. A rematch against Tom Brady and the Patriots. Final drive, pressure's on. Eli Manning draws back, sideline dimes to Mario Manningham, and one of the greatest throws in Super Bowl history. A few plays later, Ahmad Bradshaw falls into the end zone, and the Giants take the lead. Brady's last pass hits the turf. Game over. Giants do it again. 21, Patriots 17. Eli Manning, now a 2-time Super Bowl champion and a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, and a legacy sealed, being the only quarterback besides Nick Foles to defeat the glorious and the legend, the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. But after winning his second Super Bowl in 2011, Eli entered 2012 with sky-high expectations. For a moment, he delivered. He threw for 4,000 yards, made a Pro Bowl, and kept the Giants in playoff contention until the final weeks. But then the team around him began to crack, suffered from aging veterans, injuries, and defensive struggles. In 2013, the cracks began to fracture. The Giants started 0-16, the worst start in a decade. Eli threw for a career-high 27 interceptions, many caused by protection breakdowns in desperate late-game situations. But even in the chaos, he never pointed fingers. He never blamed teammates, and he stood at the podium every week taking responsibility even when it wasn't his fault. This was the beginning of a new phase in Eli Manning's career, being known as the Survivor. In 2014, the Giants hired Ben McAdoo as the offensive coordinator, bringing in a new West Coast system, quicker reads, shorter drops, and faster rhythm. Many wondered if Eli could adapt, but he did more than just adapt. He thrived. He threw for 4,410 yards and 30 touchdowns. This was his best statistical season since 2011. And then came a rookie wide receiver who you may have heard of him, Odell Beckham Jr. The chemistry was instant, explosive, electric. In 2015, Eli threw 35 touchdowns, the second highest total in his career. He was efficient, aggressive, and revitalized. But the Giants' defense collapsed, blowing multiple late-game leads, and Eli played some of his best football of his life. But they ultimately finished 6-10. It was cruel irony. The quarterback was rising while the team was falling, and in 2016, truly was a renaissance. They rebuilt the defense and a healthy receiver core. With an 11-5 record, the Giants' best season in years, Eli returned to the playoffs for the first time since his last Super Bowl run. And against the Green Bay Packers, he played brilliantly earlier, dropping back perfect deep balls and vicious sideline strikes to Tavarius King. But he dropped passes drop passes and defensive breakdowns doomed the Giants. It would be Eli's final playoff game. Now we get to 2017. It was his darkest chapter in his career. The Giants collapsed to a 2-9 start. In a stunning move, head coach Ben McAdoo benched Eli Manning, ending his 210-game starting streak, the third largest for a quarterback in NFL history. The decision sparked outrage across the NFL. Fans were furious, former players were furious, even opponents had even expressed disbelief. But Eli Manning stood at that podium, emotional but composed, saying, "If we're going to play the other guys, play them. Starting just to keep the streak going, that's not who I am." It was a moment that revealed his character more than any touchdown ever could. Days later, McAdoo was fired, and Eli ultimately was reinstated as the starter. The city of New York rallied behind him, and in 2018, Eli poised one of the most accurate seasons of his career, 66 completions, 4,299 yards, despite playing behind one of the league's worst offensive lines. But the Giants, they were rebuilding, and ultimately, his time in the NFL was dwindling down. The Giants drafted Daniel Jones. Eli handled the transition with grace, no bitterness, no drama. He mentioned the rookie who would eventually replace him. When Jones was named the starter, Eli stepped aside quietly, the same way he had always carried himself. But fate had one more moment for him. In the 2019 season, Jones was injured, and Eli returned to the field one last time at MetLife Stadium. He led the Giants to a win, and the crowd chanted his name. He walked off the field with tears in his eyes, ultimately being the perfect goodbye. And on January 22nd, 2020, Eli Manning retired after 16 seasons, all with the New York Giants. The franchise retired number 10, and he was inducted into the Giants Ring of Honor. But he left the game as a 2-time Super Bowl champion, a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, a 57,000-yard passer, a Walter Payton Man of the Year winner, and truly a New York icon. His later years, they weren't about stats or wins. They're about leadership, resilience, loyalty, and dignity. Eli Manning didn't just play quarterback. He showed what it means to be a franchise cornerstone, not only in victory, but also in adversity. And that's the story of Eli Manning. And now, to the future. Archie Manning. He was born April 27, 2004 in New Orleans, Louisiana. And let's be honest, football was basically in his DNA. He's the son of Cooper Manning, grandson of Archie Manning, and nephew to Peyton and Eli, three of the most recognizable quarterbacks in football history. From a young age, Arch showed the same calm confidence and natural talent that made the Manning name iconic. Arch played at Isidore Newman School in New Orleans, the same school where both Peyton and Eli played. He became one of the most hyped high school quarterbacks of this modern era. Recruiting analysts called him the most complete QB prospect since Trevor Lawrence. His highlights went viral. His footwork, accuracy, and poise under pressure made him the #1 recruit in the nation. And then, in 2023, Arch shocked the college football world by committing to the Texas Longhorns over the powerhouse programs like Alabama and Georgia. Texans fans, they just didn't celebrate. They exploded, because this wasn't just a commitment, it was a statement. He redshirted his freshman year, learned the system, and waited for his moment. And by 2025, Archie Manning took over as Texans starting quarterback, and he delivered, boasting 3,163 passing yards, 26 touchdowns, and the Citrus Bowl MVP in 2025. He led Texas to multiple top 10 wins and finished the season as one of the hottest QBs in college. He didn't just live up to the hype, he grew into it. And as his NFL aspirations moved on, he has officially announced that in 2026, he will be returning to Texas for another season. He has entered 2026 as a Heisman contender and one of the top QB prospects for the 2027 NFL Draft. So what's next for the young man? Where will he go? Will he live up to the shoes that his grandfather and his uncles have done in the NFL? Or will he crumble under the pressure? These are things that we have yet to know, but I know that I am ecstatic, and my brother as well, Glizzy here, are ecstatic to see what next is to come in this football family, the Manning family. And by this is the end of a football family life, the Manning family. Thank you all. Signing out.